We want to welcome everyone to our beautifully remodeled Murphy Performance Hall, otherwise known as the City Auditorium. And we especially want to thank you for taking time off of your very busy schedule to join us here this evening. I'd like to start off, first of all, by recognizing our City Council members who are in attendance this evening. I'd like to start off, of course, with Tommy Hebert. Tommy, would you stand and thank you, Tommy. Tom Thompson, Harry Thomas, Lucy Gonzalez, Lane Carter, and Billy DeWitt. At the conclusion of the State of the City address, we will give you an opportunity to come up and ask any questions that you may have, either whether it's directed toward the mayor, myself, city staff, or even council members that are present here this evening. We ask that you come up to the speaker, state your name, and give us your question. I do want to make sure that everybody's aware that we are on live on SATV channel 17, and we're also streaming live on our Facebook. We'll also be recording and rebroadcasting this event later on. Now, we also want to make sure that we invite you to a reception that we're having. We do have drinks and treats available after this event is over. We ask that as you exit the auditorium that you turn left, and we have our reception hall, East Reception Hall to the left. As you climb up the stairs, you'll find us there. We do have tables that are set up around the room, and we have our directors that will be stationed there at those tables in case you have any questions that pertains to their departments. We're here to help you and to ask any questions that you may have. I want to talk a little bit about how this State of the City event actually happened. As some of you may know, you business owners know that the city does a State of the City address every year at the Chamber of Commerce luncheon, which is usually held in October. And this year, the mayor and I were meeting, and she asked, well, why don't we do something for all the citizens, not just the business owners? I thought that was a wonderful idea. And what we'll be doing every year from here on out is doing the State of the City for our citizens, everyone, so you can be included and also have an opportunity to ask any questions. We'll also be doing the State of the City for the Chamber of Commerce, which is in October, but again, we wanted to make sure that we had that opportunity. So, Mayor, thank you for coming up with a really, really good idea there. I appreciate it. Now, I'd like to kick off the State of the City address with a little trivia and little known facts about the city's operations. Did you know San Angelo has 663 miles of water distribution mains? That's in addition to the 63 miles of pipeline to the Hickory Aquifer and 485 miles of sewer mains. A staff of only 50 workers attends to all of those lines, plus more than 50 lift stations and 150 plus grinders that are part of the sewage disposal system. Did you know the city's water treatment plant was built nearly 100 years ago? Did you know that 51% of the city's general fund, the portion of the budget supported by property tax and sales tax, is dedicated to our police and fire departments? In fact, the property tax in San Angelo was initiated to pay for police and fire protection. Today, all of the property taxes collected by the city are not adequate to fund the police and fire department's budgets. Did you know the city's parks department attends to 590 total acres of parks, sports fields, medians, and other public spaces? It does so with a staff of only about 50 employees. Did you know the city maintains approximately 1,200 lane miles of streets? It does so with 37 street and bridge employees. That includes 1 superintendent, 1 supervisor, 1 administrative assistant, and 2 coordinators. In addition to streets, Those employees are responsible for maintenance of all alleyways, mosquito control, and the demolition of dangerous buildings for the fire marshal's office. Did you know our animal control officers have investigated more than 75 cases so far year to date? That presents a huge spike over prior years. These cases include cruelty, bite quarantine, and more. Through these investigations, 11 dogs have been declared dangerous. Did you know over the past year, our Buildings Permits and Inspections Division issued more than 7,000 permits? Through July, we have issued some 370 building permits more than in the prior year. We've also conducted about 11,000 inspections over the past year. Did you know the claim that San Angelo has the highest taxes in the state of Texas is a myth? According to the state comptroller's office, last year San Angelo had the 165th highest municipal tax rate in the state. More importantly, though, according to smartasset.com, the average homeowner in Tom Green County pays 1.39% of his assessed home values in taxes. That compares to a statewide average of 1.93%. Did you know the city's award-winning public information office maintains a Facebook page that has 26,730 followers? That's more than the Facebook pages of the cities of Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, El Paso, Corpus Christi, Plano, Laredo, and Lubbock, all of which are more than at least twice our size. And our Facebook page is updated several times daily. Did you know the city employs 999 public servants, 866 of whom are full-time employees? The city's total payroll, which includes salaries and benefits, equals slightly more than $60 million. With that said, now it is my honor to introduce our mayor, Brenda Gunter, and she will be interviewed on stage by our public information officer, Anthony Wilson. Please join me in welcoming her.
Mayor, I think that applause was for you.
Thank you very
Just a
much.
guess.
Thank you all for being here tonight. As Daniel said, this is what we hope will be the first meeting of an ongoing annual meeting, and we hope that the audience will continue to grow. Tonight it looks like we have about 120 people here, so thank you for taking the time to join us tonight, and please take the opportunity to ask questions and visit with the staff later this evening.
All right, shall we
Okay,
chat?
let's do it.
So one of the things that has really impressed me about you in this past year is the gusto with which you have approached your job. And not just the ceremonial part, but I mean the really meaningful parts of governing. So I assume that you love being mayor. What about the job excites you?
The most important part, I think, of the job is really meeting the citizens. You have to be a great listener, because a lot of people want to talk about the issues, the problems, their concerns, what they see, what they don't see. So the first thing I love about being mayor is having a great ear, loving to listen, loving to share and talk back to the citizens. I'm a hard worker, always have been. I've always been a cheerleader. I continue to be a cheerleader. I like being a leader, and I think one of the greatest things we need in a mayor today is great leadership. Leadership starts at the top. It's what I ran my campaign on, and I intend to fulfill that promise. Leadership starts at the top.
Has there been anything that you've encountered, or maybe a moment where you thought to yourself, man, this job is harder than I thought it would be?
It's as hard as I thought it would be, and I will tell you that I knew it would be going in. The toughest part of it, I think, is the fact that, you know, every time you make a decision, someone's going to be mad at you. You can't make 100% of the people happy all of the time, But on the other hand, I think that myself, as well as the support from all my city council, we try to make decisions that have a long-term impact, not something that was a moment in time, but something if we look 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, it was the right decision, the correct decision to make sure that San Angelo maintains and continues to be the quality of city that it is today.
Mayor, is there some specific accomplishment within our organization that gives you a particular pride, something that's happened over the past year?
The thing I take the greatest pride in is changing the message, and the message today is San Angelo is pro-business. I believe strongly that economic development, a pro-business mentality, is the single most important thing that we can do as a mayor, city council members, and a city hall. Certainly, private sector is the one who creates the jobs, but we are the people who pass the ordinance, and we are the people who have to make sure that the process is a simple, easy process. We must have economic development. We must have growth. We cannot survive as a quality city if we don't have growth in this community.
Well, because economic development has been a major plank of your platform, we're going to talk about that quite a bit here in a moment. But first, since this is a State of the City event, I'm wondering, if you were asked to describe the state of the city in one word, what would that word be?
I don't think one word can describe it. But if I could have 2 or 3 words, I would say it's a great city with a great quality of life that needs to be protected. We need to make sure that the decisions we make today ensure that the generations to come have the same great quality city that we have today.
So what are the things about our community and about our municipal government that you think are great and are strong?
Some of the things that Daniel just talked about I think is impressive. The amount of parks that we have, the number of acres that we have, the few employees that maintain them, the huge amount of water lines, sewer lines. It's a big job. And those issues, infrastructure is obviously the #1 focus and the most important thing that city government does. So we need to make sure, in fact, that whatever decisions we make, that we take care of infrastructure first and foremost. Got to have it. Got to happen.
So if you were to flip that coin over and think about the things that could be better about our community and our municipal government, what would those things be?
Communication. I think communication is the #1 challenge, whether you're in the private sector or a municipality. It's the toughest challenge. We cannot communicate enough, thoroughly enough, and often enough. There aren't that many platforms to do it, and so tonight is one of those platforms that we really hope we have an opportunity to communicate to our citizens about what's going on and to be able to listen to them in a non-political, non-chamber, non-city council meeting. So we hope everyone takes advantage of that.
So you're obviously out in the community a lot, even beyond your work with the city council. So when you're out, whether it's in the community or at your restaurant or at a city council meeting, what is it that people are communicating to you about? What are the issues that move people to come up and talk to you?
I think there's a legend that says San Angelo is the only city that doesn't have a city of 100,000 population that doesn't have an interstate that runs by it. So of course the first thing everybody says to me is, are you really supporting the conversation about an interstate coming through San Angelo? And what I like to say back to them is, do you believe that we need to have quality roads, that our roads are an important part of the infrastructure within our city, that we need to make sure that we have roads that are good roads, so if people want to come from some other place to here, that it's a quality road. And so when you talk about interstate, I say, let's not talk about interstate, let's talk about quality of roads. We need to make sure that we have good roads to support the freight mobility business that's so important to this economy. We cannot survive today on the little businesses that used to be, or the big businesses that used to be agricultural. They become a smaller and smaller part of what makes up the business here. Today, food, fuel, fiber, all of those issues are important to our economy. And when you talk about those, somehow they got to get from point A to point B. And we don't want them to be traveling on roads that are not safe. This part of the country, West Texas, we represent only 2.5% of the population, but we have 9% of the fatalities that exist in the state of Texas. And a lot of that's because we have roads where we drive into each other or face each other, two-way streets, two-way roads. And so if we don't talk about improving roads, we talk about fatalities, we can't have that. The most important thing that we can do is have a conversation about how to improve those roads. And so people who say ports to planes, why do you support it, why are you involved in it, what's it all about? It's about improving our roadways. The passing lanes from San Angelo to Cristobal to Sonora to Del Rio were part of the Ports to Plains conversation. The number of fatalities that used to happen from San Angelo to Cristobal was a significant number every year. Today, that number is almost down to 0. And so we know that that's an important part of the conversation. So, and also as we work with TxDOT, we also know that we're looking at reliever routes, and that means that, for example, Highway 2105 would be a great reliever route, which means that people could drive 277 north, cross over on 2105, connect to 87 north, and not use Loop 306. So there are opportunities and ways that we can direct the traffic that doesn't necessarily come directly through San Angelo.
So when citizens like these folks who are gathered here approach you and they want to talk to you about issues, are they macro in nature like transportation, or are they sort of zeroed down to a micro level about something that's happening on their street or in their neighborhood?
Certainly streets is a major conversation today. We know that there are many years where there was very limited money that was put towards road improvement. The city today has an 80 million 10-year plan to improve every street in the city of San Angelo. I'm not sure any other city in the state of Texas has that kind of an aggressive plan. Now, we also know at the end of those 10 years, we're going to have to start the process over and over again. So people will say, well, we don't like it because you borrowed the money. And I say to people, did you pay cash for your first house? You probably had to borrow the money, didn't you? You have to invest. And so today the city has made an investment, yes, by borrowing money, to make sure that our streets in the city of San Angelo are good streets. And the next thing people say, well, why not my street first? Well, we wanted to get the personalities and the politics out of it, so we hired a company who actually evaluated every single street in the city of San Angelo and rated them 1 through however many there are and determined the priorities there. I am proud to say, if you take a look at MLK Boulevard right now, it's a great standard for what we're doing in terms of improving our roads. We just recently approved $22 million to improve Bell Street. People say $22 million, it's a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but it's going to be a well-built road. We're redoing the water, we're redoing the sewer, and we are rebuilding that street, which is basically one of the worst streets in the city of San Angelo right now. The most important thing next, if you talk about streets, is going to be what we're going to do with Avenue P. For 50-some years or more, the people who live on Avenue P have suffered every time we get a good rain, which isn't very often, granted, but when we do get one, the flooding is tremendous. And so the council has found a way to support the plan. We've found the property to create the retaining ponds, and we're going to get that street repaired, and those people will no longer have to worry about the flooding.
You know, you mentioned about borrowing money in order to finance those street projects, and it is important that people know that that's being done within the current tax rate.
Correct.
And so while we are borrowing money, we're not raising the tax rate in order to repay those bonds.
Correct.
So the city council has adopted, as you know, priorities such as water and streets, but the one thing that you focused a lot of your time and attention on has definitely been economic development. The answer may be self-evident, but why is economic development so critical to our community?
It's critical because the only way you can spend money to find water or repair the streets is to have money. And the only way we can continue to fund these projects is to continue to have a property and sales tax base that allows us the money to do those projects. And you can't have it if you don't have a great economy. You might remember back in 2015 and 2016 and part of 2017, our sales tax receipts were negative. The city was really struggling to figure out how to finance and pay for some of the things that needed to be done, including the compensation that our police officers wanted. So you remember this, we cannot function if we don't have a revenue stream. And a revenue stream for the city is property taxes and sales taxes. So, and the only way you get those is if you have a good economy, because a negative sales trend doesn't give you the income that you need, the revenue stream that you need to do the project.
You know, one of the things that you have stressed a lot is building up a property tax base so that it relieves actually the tax burden on homeowners.
Once again, our tax base is 77.6, which is what we approved again today to continue with. And let me say the following is the residential community carries the heavy burden of our tax base because we don't have a strong commercial industrial tax base. And I say to you, we still can have a great quality of city, even as we grow industry and we grow the commercial base of this city. The other most important part about economic development is that the city of San Angelo needs to have wages that allow people a livable wage and not a minimum wage. And if we don't have growth, if we don't have new companies, if we don't have successful companies, then our citizens are left with, very often, too many of them earning minimum wage. When you raise the wages, when people have an opportunity to earn a living, they then might buy a home, they then shop in our stores, they eat in our restaurants, they make purchases, they buy cars, they buy electronics. A healthy economy means that you have a citizenship that in fact is making a good living in the city.
Is there a particular industry that you think San Angelo is well poised to take advantage of?
There's an old saying, fish where the fish are. And basically that means you have to sort of take a look at where your city is located. What are the industries that seem to make sense in the city that you live in? And certainly that means oil and gas and manufacturing. Those are the top industries that seem to fit well within the community of San Angelo, Texas. And certainly it does, because we're very close to the Permian Basin. And so we become the great quality of city that many companies are looking for. If you say to people, we're a pro-business city, come look at our city, most of them will say it's the best quality of city that they can pick from as it relates to the Permian Basin. We have a quality of life, and most companies want their employees to have a place where they can enjoy a good quality of life, which is what we offer here.
Do you think, Mayor, that there is a particular asset, be it downtown or Lake Nasworthy or the airport or Goodfellow, that we're positioned to maximize?
I want to talk first, I guess, about Goodfellow Air Force Base, because it is our #1 employer in this city. They employ today about 5,000 people. Their financial impact on this city is close to $400 million. The impact in the state of Texas from Goodfellow Air Force Base is over $3 billion. We have to make sure that Goodfellow Air Force Base is an important part of this city. You know, several years ago, a couple decades ago, I guess, is when we had an opportunity, or I shouldn't say an opportunity, where the BRAC closures were being discussed, and San Angelo Goodfellow Air Force Base was one of those bases that was being considered. So since that time frame, the citizens of this city, the leadership in this city, have made sure that Goodfellow Air Force Base and the Washington, D.C. understands how much this community supports Goodfellow Air Force Base. Today we have the highest level of what we call P4s, public-private partnerships. We're #1 in the nation, #1. We have 22 P4s. That's incredible. And that's out of 61 bases in the United States, we're #1. And we will continue to work hard. You know, amazing thing about Goodfellow Air Force Base, today we're trying to find out a way to build 96 new apartments off the base. The apartments that exist on the base today were built 1940s, 50s, and 1960. The federal government said those apartments are not good. People should not be living in those apartments. Those apartments still exist on Goodfellow Air Force Base, and we're still using them. And so we've got a strategy to try to find a way through private public partnerships to build additional housing. Today we have something like 14,000 students who come through Goodfellow Air Force Base for training. Goodfellow Air Force Base also has the Lewis F. Garland Firefighter Center, which is the only one in the United States. So we train all firefighters for all of the military in the United States. And we also have people from other foreign countries who come here to be trained in our firefighters school. It's impressive. You know, many people don't realize the huge impact Goodfellow has on us, because in fact many people don't have an opportunity to go on the base. It's significant, and I am so proud to say that this city has always supported the military. You know, there are cities that in fact the military refuses to wear their uniforms once they leave base. In this city, our military is proud to wear their uniforms off base. They're proud to be in our places of business. And so many of you citizens, when you're in a restaurant and you see military there, have picked up the bill for their food. So I thank you for each and every one of you who have done that. But our support must continue. We have been told that there will be a BRAC in probably the year 2000, if not 2019 or 2020. And so we're going to continue to work hard to ensure that Goodfellow Air Force Base will always be the #1 employer in the city of San Angelo.
You've obviously been a champion and a cheerleader and a force behind downtown revitalization. Why have you been so passionate about that?
First of all, it's the one piece of this city that differentiates us from all the rest of the cities in the country, let alone the state of Texas. It's our history, it's our beginning, and it's an important part of our economic development. Today, because our downtown has started a great 10-year revitalization effort, Shannon Hospital as well as Community Hospital have a much greater ability to recruit doctors, nurses, and healthcare professionals because these people see this downtown area as a great quality of life. They don't want to just live in a city in the suburbs, if you will. They want to know that there's a great nightlife, there's a great activity, that there's great cultural events. And downtown's kind of the headquarters for that. The same thing with ASU. They have a much better ability to recruit professors as well as students because of our downtown area. It is the center of so many things. And it is important for us to differentiate ourselves. Otherwise, we're just like every other town in the state of Texas. It's what makes us unique. It's our history. It's an important part of our story.
What do you think San Angelo has done right in regards to economic development?
#1, we started a pro-business, pro-economic development message. Most importantly, I think, though, however, is that for the first time in many, many years, the Chamber of Commerce president, the county judge, myself, city leaders have all gotten together and we meet on a regular basis. This sounds like such a simple thing, but it wasn't happening before. So we didn't have a solid message of where we are and where we want to go. We know that if we as leaders aren't joining in conversation and sharing our ideas and using the strength of each of the organizations that we represent, that we can't maximize what San Angelo is and what San Angelo has the capability of becoming. We shouldn't just be happy with what we are today. We should envision a much bigger, better San Angelo. And when I say bigger, I don't mean that we're going to be 150,000 people. Bigger means bigger in mindset. Who do we want to be? What can we be? What should we be? What's the vision? What's the strategy? How do we make it happen? I strongly believe that if we don't set a great vision for today, if we look at 10 years down the road, San Angelo won't be the great quality of city that we have today. You have to fight hard for it. You have to have a strategy for it. You've got to think through the process in order to make sure that we protect what we are today.
Mayor, in what ways do you see our economic development efforts evolving so that we create more jobs and build a stronger property tax base?
I'm very interested in growth at the airport. So many people have complained, and the conversation seems to be around American Airlines and the lack of flights or the lack of planes, or the planes are late, the planes are this, the planes are that. But what we haven't done is used our airport as an economic development opportunity. That airport has so much potential, and we've not looked at it in terms of what it can offer this city. If you were American Airlines corporate executive and you walked out of the terminal, what would you see? Not much. We don't look like we're a city of strong economic background. We don't look like a city of quality of life. You just see an open field with mesquite trees, and when you drive out, it's some more mesquite trees. You don't see a lot of activity out there. We need to make sure that that airport has activity. The stronger we make that airport in terms of a business park or industrial park, I think we can get American Airlines to look at us and say, let's take a look at San Angelo. I think there's something there. I was in San Diego earlier this month and went to a P3 airport summit. And one of the American Airlines gentlemen was on the panel, so I made a point to visit with him afterwards and made my pitch, for San Angelo. And he said, we're talking about San Angelo. So let's just see what happens. You know, today the government is moving the drones, the border security drones, to San Angelo. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to be out at the airport when you see one of those huge big drones on the runway. It's impressive. Customs is a strong business out there, but there's some other businesses that we're looking at that we think will be great partners in helping us develop that airport. Today, the City Council approved an RFQ for an airport master plan. That master plan will incorporate not only what's behind the fence, but what's outside of that fence. We've got a lot of land out there. It needs to be developed. It needs to be there to support the airport as an economic driver of this city. You know, we talk about transportation, trains, planes, and automobiles. We got to look at each of those areas and look at them and see how we can make those things impact our city positively.
In addition to trying to attract new ventures, we also help and incentivize existing businesses to either stay here or to grow. What's the right mix between helping our existing businesses stay and grow here versus trying to attract new industry to town?
Well, I repeat that, you know, fish where the fish are, and so, you know, we don't want to miss the opportunity to look at businesses who exist here in San Angelo and see if there's an opportunity to help them grow and develop. But what's been most important this year over the past 9 or 10 months is that we have 4 companies have come to San Angelo, which will have somewhat of a $70 million impact on our economy over the next year. Not a single one of those companies asked for a single penny, not a dime. They saw So they saw San Angelo as an opportunity for their businesses to grow, and because of what's going on in the Permian Basin, they made a decision that they needed to be here very quickly. They didn't want to wait and go through the whole routine of going to COSA DC, getting approval from City Council. The process takes too long. When they made a decision to come here, they sort of packed their bags and started moving this way. Caron Transportation, which is out of Alberta, Canada, actually is now, based off of their early results here, going to make San Angelo their headquarters in the United States. It's pretty important, pretty impressive. Dragon Industries moved here in about September, October last year. They're going to employ 140 to 160 people, and these will be above their livable wages. Very strong wages. And what they asked for us is we need our staff to be trained. We need welders. They listed 5 or 6 occupations. So we turned to Howard College and said to Jamie Rainey, help us. This company's here, they need help. So we've worked with Howard College to ensure that the workforce needs are met by the training, the trades training that exists out at Howard College. The same thing with, many of you might not know this, but the home builders today about 6 months ago, made a decision that they really wanted a trade school also out at Howard College, because most of the people in the home building business today are aging. And so they realized that they didn't have a trade school to start teaching people HVAC, tile, plumbing, electrical, etc. We were going to deplete our resources here, and they were not going to have the subs that they needed to do to complete their projects. So that is 100% funded by the Home Builders Association, 100% funding. In addition to that, they are offering for the first 25 students 100% paid for scholarships. Pretty impressive. And those are just a couple of the examples. SMC Global has been here for about 6 months. They've bought 2 facilities, and they've already decided that those 2 facilities are too small. So talk about 100,000 square feet facility, and it's not large enough. So I think they're doing okay. And they're going to expand and probably look at 2 more facilities. But that being said, I think most people don't realize how much manufacturing actually goes on in the city of San Angelo. Do you know that we have over 100 manufacturers in this city? Some of them have been here a long time. Ethicon, C&J Energy, Hirschfeld Steel, Gandy Inc., Time Clock Plus. Time Clock Plus is a wonderful story about a business started here and today employs 200 to 300 people, and they're continually growing. We've got more going on in this city than you can even imagine. Lone Star Beef continues to grow and develop. Turner Collection continues to grow and sell to retail stores outside of the city of San Angelo. And I don't want to miss anybody, so I'm very nervous about naming names, but we have a wonderful manufacturing opportunity here in San Angelo. If you take a look at 2017, manufacturing represented about 4.2% of the total retail sales dollars. Today it represents about 6.6%, and that's in 1 year. Pretty impressive. But when we talk about economic development, we must develop a much stronger base, property tax base, and that means primarily the businesses that we just talked about. Some of the buildings that these people have been, businesses are relocated to were facilities that were left empty when oil busted several years ago. The good news is they're back in use. The good news is we've got people in the buildings, we've got people working, we've got people earning great incomes, and that helps all the rest of San Angelo. Certainly the Amazon effect has hurt the retail aspect of our business. It continues to decrease a little bit. And that's why businesses like the manufacturing aspects, like bars, like restaurants, are very important to this city, because you can't buy those on Amazon. So we've got to look for more and more businesses that are Amazon-proof. I can talk for forever, but let me turn it back over to him.
So let's talk about money matters just for a second here. Last year's budget, the current fiscal year, held the line on spending with 3 exceptions. We added more police officers, we added more firefighters, and we had some raises for city employees. Now, a week from today, the City Council will engage in its first budget workshop on its way to approving a budget for the next fiscal year, which begins October the 1st. What are you anticipating will be the parameters of the 2018-2019 budget?
I'm very conservative. I plan very conservatively, and I think that we'll approach the budget in a very conservative manner. We've had a very strong year of growth in terms of retail sales. So, you know, when you start to have some 12, 13, 14, 17% increases over the 2016 period or 17 period, you get a little nervous about planning too aggressively. Do I think the economy is moving in the right direction? Do I think we've done the right things to continue to grow economic development in this city? Yes. But I still think that we need to, in fact, plan conservatively. Of course, the number one thing for me is going to make sure that we really look at the water issues. We certainly know that we're in a drought. We know that Twin Buttes and Ivy are pretty low right now. And so one of the first things I think we're going to need to talk about is how do we finance additional wells at the Hickory Aquifer. I think we have the ability to drill up to 7 more. I think we're looking at 5 more. But if this drought continues, we're going to need water. And so we've got to relook at the Hickory in terms of not only the number of wells, but also in terms of a water treatment plant to be able to take advantage of the water rights that we have.
What about the budget priorities for the portion of the budget, the general fund, that is supported by our sales and our property taxes? Do you have any sort of things that you're going to be prioritizing that we spend those dollars on?
I'm not going to specifically say anything right now. We have a council that I will be looking for some leadership from them in terms of areas that they want to focus on. So, but we know, number one, we've got to take care of water, and we've got to continue to take care of streets and street maintenance. Those 2 things are highly important to me. We have a lot of assets in this city, and over the years, because of tough tax dollars, we haven't been able to maintain them like we need to. So I think we've got to really look at the maintenance of our facilities and make sure that the maintenance dollars are there to take care of them, because the longer we postpone them, the worse that it's going to be. We also have great staff in City Hall, and so we want to make sure that the city staff is considered in terms of what we do with raises, as well as we have police officers and firemen that we also want to take a look at. Personnel is very important.
So our city manager mentioned in his opening remarks that the average San Angeloan pays less in property taxes than the average Texan. Nonetheless, our citizens have a tendency to really focus on the property tax rate, which is admittedly higher than most communities. That property tax rate has been at 77.6 cents for 5 years now, and this morning the council committed to going no higher than that with the fiscal 2019 budget. So what do you anticipate will happen with the tax rate in the coming year?
I would love if we could be at a time period we could start decrease that tax rate, but I don't think we're there. I think that we need to continue to prioritize the things that we've just talked about, because we got to have water. No city can exist. None of us can exist if we don't have water supplies. So we still got to prioritize those issues. I would say the following is that I want to plan conservative. I want priorities established. And I think we need to start developing a plan on how to maximize our assets. We've got a lot of assets. They need to be maximized because all of those things that we can do, the more we can strategize, the more we have a vision about where we want to go, the better the economy will be, the better the state of the city will be, the better the quality of the life in this city will be. So let's keep it focused. Let's not get out here. Let's stay narrow. Keep focused on water and streets.
Well, and you segued perfectly into my next question, because obviously water and streets, as you said, have been cemented as top priorities for San Angelo for this year and probably for years to come. You mentioned about trying to develop the Hickory Aquifer to maximize its potential. Is there anything else that you're going to be pushing towards in regards to water when it comes both to our supply or our infrastructure?
I think we as a city have to look at some additional alternatives. We have a great source in the Hickory right now, but I think we have to make sure that if we look down the road in the year 2050 or 2075 or 2095, that there's still enough water. And today, water is becoming a precious commodity, as we all know. All of the cities in West Texas are trying to figure out where they're going to get their water supply. From Odessa has worked with Pioneer to come up with a desalinization opportunity for them, and that's given them some more water back into their system. But we've got to keep looking at conservation, and conservation is key to me. There's certain things that we could do, I think, beyond what we're doing today. Gray water, not potty water, gray water. And when you take a look at gray water, it doesn't cost that much more to have a gray water system put into your home. And even if you prioritize that gray water system to water your trees only, it could help save money. Rain barrels are certainly another option. Silly as it is, toilets. You don't realize how much water goes down the toilet if you haven't replaced your toilet in 10 years. We've got to keep looking at ways to conserve as we look for more opportunities to find water.
So when it comes to developing more water sources, and of course we've been working with the West Texas Water Partnership for a number of years now, and that's our partnership with the cities of Abilene and Midland. Do you anticipate any sort of significant movements in the coming year on the front of water supply and obtaining more water?
I certainly do. I would hope that within a 2-year window that we have found that additional source of water. Finding the money to contain it, purchase it, and get it here is another issue. But I think within 2 years we've got another water source we'll be looking at.
About a week ago we moved into drought level 1, the first stage of our drought contingency plan. How concerned should citizens be about our water supply?
Well, they should. But, again, Lake Ivy and is down to 7 or 9%. Twin Buttes is about that same level. So when we talk about water, the strategy for the city has been to use our surface water first before we go to the Hickory water. And that's because the water evaporates at an incredible rate. And when you look at how hot this summer was, we lost a lot of water to evaporation. So we need to use those sources first. Someone will put together the numbers and say, well, we have X amount of water that we have the rights to out of Twin Buttes. Yeah, we have the rights if the water's there. You don't have the rights if there's not water there. So even if we have X amount that we were allowed, it's not there. We don't have it. And so we've got to worry about water. We have to plan for the future, and it costs money.
Of course, drought level 1 consists of essentially 2 parts. There's the watering restrictions, watering no more than once a week and no more than 1 inch per week. And then there's also some surcharges involved. When people ask about usage surcharges in our drought plan, what do you tell them as far as why they exist and the need for those surcharges?
Supply and demand. It's a business conversation, supply and demand. If you don't have it and you want it, you're going to pay more to get it. Supply and demand, it's that easy.
This spring and summer, as you mentioned, been so hot, and conservation is top of mind. And you talked about some things that you'd like to see, some further conservation efforts on the part of the community. Do you anticipate any sort of changes to our conservation ordinance in order to incentivize people to conserve more water?
I'm really proud of the citizens of San Angelo because they've done a great job of conserving their water. But I will say the following: if it continues to not rain, we're going to have to find new ways to conserve. And so we will be asking all the citizens for ideas and information on how you think we could do a better job conserving. If we don't have it, we're in trouble.
You mentioned streets as well, and as you well know, the City Council has approved a 10-year, $80 million plan to rebuild San Angelo's worst streets, including Bell Street, which is now underway. This summer, we'll complete the 4th year of an 8-year cycle to maintain every city street with seal coating, and a new asphalt recycler is smoothing streets before they require reconstruction. So it sort of begs the question, is there anything more that we can do to improve San Angelo streets, or now is it just a matter of staying that course and making sure we don't get sidetracked from rebuilding those streets and doing the maintenance that's needed?
We certainly want to stay the course, but one of the other things that we are working with TxDOT on is to make sure that we have routes through the city that prevent large trucks from going through our neighborhoods and using shortcuts to get from point A to point B. There's a lot of 18-wheelers and large trucks going through our neighborhoods, and those streets just really aren't made for that. So one of the things we're going to do is to start posting signs that say, no, get back on the highway, not through the neighborhood. And I think that will make a big difference in preserving some of our neighborhood streets.
You know, just earlier today, I was engaging with some folks on our Facebook page, and they were complaining about the fact that our streets are in such bad condition. And I mentioned about the $80 million 10-year plan, and they said that should have been done long ago. Fair enough. It was sort of a little frustrating to me that this council, this administration, is not getting the credit it deserves for finally, making that move. What do you say to people who complain about the condition?
Woulda, shoulda, coulda. We wish. Didn't happen. So we can't correct what didn't happen, but what we can do is develop a great strategy and a plan for going forward. As I said, we have this $80 million that's going to go towards doing street work on every single street in the city of San Angelo. When you think about that, every single street in the city of San Angelo is going to have work done on it in that 10-year window. Now, some of you would say, well, my street deserved year 1, mine should have been year what? There will always be debates about which street should have been done first. The good news is there's a plan to treat every street. But remember, when that's done, it's a process. It's just going to have to start all over again. Because in 10 years, if your street was done year 1, in 10 years, it's probably going to need something done again. So this conversation about streets will never stop. It will be an ongoing conversation, ongoing.
You own businesses and properties here in San Angelo. Has that given you some special insights, you think, into the city's development processes that have shaped your views as mayor?
If you remember, I ran my campaign on cut the red tape. And so obviously I had reasons to have a campaign that said that. We found in downtown redevelopment that there were too many struggles and too many people who said, if I would have known it was going to be so expensive, if I would have known it was going to be that difficult to work with the city, I wouldn't have done it. We can't have that conversation going on. So what we've got to make sure that we do is we've got to simplify the process. We've got to find 3 ways to say yes. We've got to find a way to never say no. Many of the people who come to the Planning and Permits Department to work with them on their project probably have a lot more experience than many of the people in our Permits Department or Planning Department, because they've out there physically been doing the work. Many people in our Permits Department have a book, and it's, it can't be black and white. There's got to be some gray matter. But whenever you have gray matter, what you will have is differences of opinions. But we cannot have the conversation that goes like this. Well, you told me to do all of this. I did it. Now you're back here when I need a final occupancy, and now you're telling me I have 3 other things to do. That conversation from the very beginning needs to be streamlined and very specific about expectations. Time is money when you are in the development business, when you're in the building business, when you're in the construction business. Time is money, and we cannot let our permits and planning department be the people who cost us money when we're developing. We've got to simplify the process. We've got to make the staff understand, and I think there's been good progress made. We've got to have economic development. We cannot be a city that says, hey, don't go to San Angelo, they're impossible to work with. That can't be our reputation. Our reputation must be, they're going to find a way to work with you. Try them out. We'll make it happen for you.
As you well know, Mayor, there are issues that inspire a lot of passion by our citizens. One of those earlier this year was the sewer line improvements in your neighborhood in Santa Rita. When you're confronted with those hot button issues, how do you try to approach those?
Listen. You know, the best that we can do is listen. I certainly would have liked to have had an opportunity to have a voice and a vote in that conversation, but because of where I live, was not allowed to be a part of that conversation. Certainly the work needed done. We know that that sewer line was an important project, needed to get done. We knew that we had some TCEQ issues. We knew it had to be done. On the other hand, what we wanted to do is to make sure that we have made the communication effort thorough. We can't just expect that one meeting will cover the issue. We need to have meetings far enough out so that people have an ability to offer opinions, to present their ideas, and have us have the opportunity to look at that information and see if we can change the system. Communication is everything. We've got to do it on a timely basis so that the citizens feel like their input is valued and taken into consideration. We can't do it in a time frame that says, too late, it's done. Communication, the timeliness of communication is number one.
You are San Angelo's first mayor to serve a 4-year term. You've only served 1 year now, a little bit more than 1 year. Do you anticipate running for re-election in 3 years?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you.
So before we go to questions for our viewing audience, if they have an opinion that they'd like to share with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Certainly you can call me on my city phone, and it is, I have to remember what it is. It is.
It's on our website.
It's on your website, but I think it's 450-8734. Try it. See if you get hold of me.
Very good. So
And the next best way is I have this thing called Miss Hattie's Restaurant. It's one of the best places to have a good meal and sit and visit with the mayor about your issue.
All right. I think we just slipped a plug in there. So now it's your turn to pose questions to the mayor. Now, depending upon what you ask, she may not be in a position to answer that, but that's why we have a lot of seasoned professionals over here and other city council members. So anyone who has a question, we have microphones at the front, so if you'll just come to the front. If you would maybe just tell us who you are so we can address you and know who we're talking to, and we'll just open it up to anyone who might have a question.
Or a comment.
Or a comment. Well, here comes a rather shy fellow.
My name is Jack Hutchison, and I represent Quicksand Partners, doing business as Quicksand Golf Course. I have a few questions. Some of them have been answered, but I won't take much of your time, but I would like to address mainly the department heads of the topic that I'd like to talk about. And that is, I'd like to obtain some information regarding the effluent water we have as a resource for irrigation. At the present time, it's my understanding that the raw liquid supplying the treatment plant, generated entirely by various San Angelonians, businesses, educations, private sector, so on and so forth. I've been informed that after the water has been treated to a safe level for irrigation and other requirements, it is turned over to an irrigation organization, which in turn supplies 100% of the water to rural agriculture. Do these agriculture pay San Angelo for the supply of water, or is it free to the people? That's one of the questions. And I understand there are contracts with the irrigation organization, and I'd like to know if they are forever. And there's also, I understand that there are contracts with the state and federal governments. And with that being said, I would think that we could probably use our resources for some of the people's uses in San Angelo. And with that being said, Quicksand will offer the following proposal. And Mayor, this alluded to what you were saying about we can't afford to do this, we can't afford to do that because of the cost. Okay. Quicksand would like to negotiate an agreement with the city to share a small portion of the effluent water, and in turn, we have the resources to negotiate an agreeable cost up front. In other words, we will pay for the pipeline. We have a 12-inch C900 pipeline, approximately 2 miles from the city's effluent lines. And we have a line that runs very close to the Rio Concho softball complex. And with that situation, we could easily go ahead and make it possible for that city complex to be irrigated with effluent water.
Why don't we have Allison Struby come up, because the list of questions is somewhat long. And Allison, you might want to start with question 1, and then you might find that you want to meet separately later this evening or later this week to really go through all the questions, since they're extensive and might need some research done.
Ms. Struby has been very helpful to me.
Good.
I have been in conference with her. I just needed to bring this to attention that Quicksand is willing to pay upfront costs to make sure that we might be able to get this to happen, because San Angelo is always going to be short on water. And I know that I've been in contact with Mr. Charles Moody, who owns Diamondback Golf Course and several other golf courses in the area, Big Springs and Abilene, and they do their athletic fields, they do their golf courses. And so I was getting some information from him also. So I understand about the contracts that Ms. Struby has informed me about, but I think that there must be always a way to wiggle around some of this stuff, and maybe it might be possible that some of the other entities here in San Angelo in the future would be able to use that water also.
Thank you for
And
your
I don't mean to-
thoughtfulness and the information you've provided today. I am going to ask that Allison and you continue to sit and visit and see if there's something that makes sense for the city of San Angelo and for Quicksand.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
And for our audience who is here, Allison Struby is our Water Utilities Director.
Thank you. We have been in conversations with Quicksand Golf Course and Mr. Hutchinson. There are contracts associated with our effluent water. We do currently treat and send 100% of our effluent water to the irrigation district, but those agreements also are tied in with our Twin Buttes water rights as well as the Bureau of Reclamation. And so we are looking through those, but it's a long list of contracts that we have tied with the effluent water, but it's one thing that we are looking into.
Thank you, Allison.
My name is Joe Hyde. I'm with San Angelo Live. Since we're having the water discussion again, and we mentioned our city manager mentioned the water treatment plant is almost 100 years old. Isn't it time to look at building a new water treatment plant? And have you had any discussions amongst the council members or with city staff about that?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we have had, and yes, it is a #1 priority. We realize when it's 100 years old, we better be doing something soon and fast.
And a follow-up question is, obviously they raised the water rates in order to finance something like a water treatment plant, which included water reclamation. When are we going to sell the Ford Ranch?
Let's start with number one question is about the water rates. Let's make sure we understand that we raise the water rates to pay the debt service. Debt service, not the plant itself. And so when we talk about borrowing money, we're talking about borrowing the money of which we can pay the debt service on. So that's sort of the answer to that. As it relates to the Ford Ranch, certainly there are conversations that we're having about a strategy in terms of the Ford Ranch. There are a couple parcels of the Ford Ranch that have actually been put on the market at this point in time. But we have to do some further studies in terms of understanding if we're going to sell the Ford Ranch, what do we sell with it? What water rights, what mineral rights? And until we understand the water availability on the entire big parcel, it's pretty hard to sell something you don't know what you're selling. And most people won't be that interested in buying part of the Ford Ranch if they get zero water rights. So it's not a simple answer, but it is being looked at, and we are looking at ways in which we might be able to sell the Ford Ranch.
One last question. The recycling market worldwide, the floor fell out of the recycling market.
Correct.
You can't resell things that are that used to be recycled 5 years ago. There's no market for it, so things are getting stacked up all over the country. With that in mind, do you think we should continue with our curbside recycling program? And on a tie-in to this is that our commercial garbage rates are about 3 times higher than our comparable cities. Is it time to look at possibly making a deal?
The answer to that is yes and yes. Are there further questions or comments? Yes, please come forward.
I'm a native Texan from Big Bend, and spent 17 years up in extreme northeastern Kentucky. And time to retire, so we decided to come back, and of course, San Angelo was our choice. But I want to share with you a problem I had, and I was really in a bind. 1,400 miles away, we were closing on our house, long distance for UPS, and we have a gorgeous fish pond in the backyard. Beautiful koi fish. And of course, here in the desert, you just don't turn the water off. So I called the city water department. It was probably 20 minutes on the phone with this young lady trying to make her understand that on the 28th of September of 2016, my water was going to cut off and my fish would die, and I was too far away. She said, well, I need your application and I need you in person. I need your driver's license copy and to see your face. I said, but I can't come down there right now. I'll give you 2 weeks to get here. I said, that won't do me any good. I cannot be there in 2 weeks. She said, well, that is your problem. So I got off the phone. There was no use talking any longer. Thank goodness a dear friend who was born and raised in San Angelo had introduced us to the president of a bank who financed the house. And I called him and I said, I don't know if you have any idea what you can do to help me, but please. I don't know what he did, but when I called back, they gave me the name of a person to talk to, and she was able to let us have that water. I did decide at that time that no one was going to fake their identity and come into San Angelo and do bad things because the city water department would not allow it.
Thank you for sharing that story, I think. So, okay, further questions, comments, stories that we could share? One of the other companies that I didn't mention earlier that has moved here is U.S. Well Service, and I knew I would forget somebody. So Michael Looney, who is our Chamber Economic Development person. So what else did I miss?
Yes, this is more of a comment than a question, Mayor, but I wanted to share with you and with the public that the SMC Global Corporation, which located 2 facilities here to penetrate the Permian market and the West Texas market, expressed to us that they were very pleased with the changes that we knew were going on within the city permitting and planning department and the water department. And which I should mention, approximately two facilities and approximately 4 months worth of planning and development and permitting was done within 7 weeks. And that was, I think, a lot of because of the city staff got behind us pretty much as a team and made that deal happen. And SMC Global, which I know I'd introduced to you, a very demanding company from New York, their competitor to Dow. They mean business, and they have told us repeatedly that that was one of the things that made San Angelo so attractive, is that they were welcomed with open arms, and the permitting and planning and water departments immediately helped them with not just one facility, but 2, and now they're looking at a 3rd. So anyway, it was just worth something to note that the changes that are being instituted are working. And that's the only comment I have, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Ann Bramble. First, I want to thank you so much for starting work on Bell Street, living on the east side of San Angelo. I'm really looking forward to that. And my question is Avenue N on the agenda? If so, when?
Avenue N is on the agenda. Shane, can you maybe give her a timeline that would be looked at?
So this is Shane Kelton. He is our operations director.
Yes, Avenue N is one of the streets that's on our major project list, and it will be going in design, I guess, within about the next year, and we're looking at that being a year 7 project. So in year 7 of our funding cycle, that project will be let, and we'll start construction then.
Thank you.
I had one more comment. I want to point out the San Angelo Chamber of Commerce have been absolutely wonderful to work with. My brother and I have already been working with Brenda. We're bringing a vintage Chevrolet tour to San Angelo next April, and the Chamber of Commerce has gone way beyond anything we ever expected. It's been wonderful, and as we've talked to other people, we've been setting up tours for essentially about 20 years, and this has been the absolute best city to ever work with, so I wanted you all to know and to thank the gentleman that was just here. His staff is amazing.
Thank you very much. Further questions or comments? Thank you once again for attending. It meant a lot for me to see this kind of attendance. It's important to us that we have a transparency in City Hall and city government, and it's important to me that we give you all an opportunity to hear the message and to give us back your input. So thank you once again for joining us this evening.